In this video, we'll take a more in-depth look at the calculations for the green reading system. We do this by going to the theory page, by going into putting, then green reading, then at the very bottom we have theory. Then go to the useful estimate section. Now at the top we have the green reading equation. This is just another way of thinking about what we did in the last video. First counting the number of steps, multiplied by the step number, then adding the start number. But thinking about it this way is really useful for getting a good base read for longer putts. As in this case, you can just plug in the distance for the putts and solve for the aim. Then after this, for longer putts, you have to make an adjustment due to non-linearities in the physics model. But this we will cover later in the video. We then have two paragraphs about two-plane reading, which you can read more about on the website. Then, to change your aim to a different stimp, what you would do is that you would change it by 10% if you have elevation of 0% or uphill. So as an example, a stimp 10, which with an aim of 30 cm, would be 33 cm at stimp 11 or 27 at stimp 9. Then, if you have a downhill putt, you would change the aim by 15 to 20%, depending on how much downhill you have. The next thing that you need to be able to solve for is non-integer slope. You can do this in many different ways, but the recommended way is that for a 0.5% slope, you simply solve it as a 1% slope putt, then divide by 2. For 1.5% slope, you solve it as a 1% slope, then add 50%. For 2.5%, you solve it as a 2% putt and add 25%. And lastly, for the 3.5%, you can either solve it this similar way as a 3% putt and add 20%, or you can use the relationship in this paragraph underneath. Here you can see as an example that a putt with slope of 3.5% and elevation of 0 can be converted into a putt with 3% slope and elevation of -1. And then this you will simply solve as normal. And the relationship that a change of 0.5% in slope equates to a change of 1% in elevation holds for most putts with more break. To see exactly when you can use this, you can take a look at the extended simplified tables, which you can activate from the homepage. And in those tables, you can then take a look at the diagonals following the direction of change described in this example. The last thing that we'll take a look at, we will find by going to the simplified tables page. So we'll go out from this page, then into tables and graphs, then simplified tables, and then press expand at the top right. What we have here is the table fit for stimp 10, and it gives us additional information for how the simplified table relates to the physics model. As an example, we take a look at the slope of 1% and 0 elevation, so in this box. In the first position, you can see that we have a minus sign. What that means is that the start number underreads a 1 meter putt. So for a 1 meter putt, we will simply increase the aim by 1 centimeter. In the second position, we have a plus sign. What that means is that the read from the 2 and 3 or the start and step number overreads for a 4 meter putt. So in that case, we will simply reduce the aim by 1 centimeter. And for all the putts in between, we will simply use the start and step number normally. If you would have had a dot, the start and step number wouldn't need any more adjustment. But what's happening in the second position is really useful for estimating the aim for longer putts. So as an example, if we have a plus sign and have a longer putts, such as 7 or 8 meters, we don't have to make much of an adjustment to the base read from the equation. If anything, maybe decrease the aim by a centimeter. If we have a dot, we need to increase the aim for any additional distance past 4 meters. So for a 6 meter putt, it might be about increasing the aim by a centimeter, and for a 10 meter putt, something like 3 centimeters. If you have a minus sign, you then need to increase the aim even more. To get a sense for how big this adjustment is, you can either use practice 5 to 10 meter putts from practice reading, or just take a look at the distant putts aim tables. But what's most important to get video from this table is what's happening in the first position for the centermost values in the table, as these are the 1 meter putts which you'll have most of on the course. So for stimp 10, we can see that in this center part of the table, in a plus configuration, we have minus signs in the first position. So if you have 1 meter putt with these combinations of slope and elevation, you simply increase the aim by 1 centimeter. And for all other putts, proceed as normal. That was everything for this video. In the next, we'll do a couple of example reads. See you then.